everyone, and welcome to another episode of Pathfinder presented by Payload, the leading digital media company in the space industry. Our guest today is John Conafay, the CEO of Integrate. John started Integrate last year to digitize and simplify communication and collaboration in the space industry, effectively a program management platform for complex hardware development. Before we jump in, a brief word from our sponsors. SpiderOak's Orbit Secure software is designed for hybrid space operators struggling to manage the chaos of securing data flow and access to and from tens of thousands of small satellites in low Earth orbit. Using a unique combination of end-to-end zero-trust encryption and blockchain distributed ledger, Orbit Secure allows your mission to orchestrate and secure Earth-to-orbit, orbit-to-Earth transmission, communication, and storage of sensitive data across even the most complex and unsecure hybrid space environments. To learn how Orbit Secure can bring zero-trust security and resiliency to your zero-gravity environments, check out SpiderOak at www.spideroak.com. John, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. Really appreciate it.
Very happy to have you. Where are you calling in from?
Calling in from our brand new offices in Ballard in Seattle.
Oh, amazing. Have you always been based in Seattle?
For the past 4 years, moved up here for Spaceflight, stayed while I was at ABL, and just fell head over heels in love with it. So,
got it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're going to hear quite a bit about your background, but before we get into that, maybe just give us like a very quick 2 minutes on Integrate. So, company that you founded, a lot of cool stuff happening. So, maybe just give us the quick elevator pitch.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I've been working in the space industry for about the past decade and felt a lot of pain around the ability to communicate internal and external schedules with customers. I've been on the business development side largely and operations with customers, with supply chain, with vendors, and the like. Generally, you have this very, very exquisite schedule that's built in Jira or Smartsheet or Excel or something like this, where you're passing out-of-date information to out-of-date information to out-of-date information. And so we wanted to build something initially as an apology to all of my mission managers that I worked with over the years, but it's evolved into much more than just mission management, for a way to put together these big, beautiful, exquisite schedules that actually have context with regard to requirements and specifications of hardware, and allow them to come together more organically and allow people external to your organization and internal to your organization to collaborate on these schedules without giving up the ghost on every bit of your schedule. So,
right.
You build these exquisite schedules and want part of your supply chain to see some of the schedule, but you have to give away all of it. We allow for individual pieces to be dissected and let out into the wild so that you have this real living view of everything that's going on with your supply chain, internal builds, production, etc.
So we've had a couple different kind of what I would call digital tools, software management platforms here on the show. Would love kind of and I've in one form or another asked them this question. So I want to get your perspective on this one, which is if you were to describe what your business does to like your 5-year-old cousin.
Yeah.
How would you do that?
So it would not be our one-liner because my 5-year-old cousin would be like, what the hell's program management? Let's
start with your one-liner and then we'll go from there.
Yeah. Our one-liner is program management for the world's most ambitious machines. A little bit of a pun there with the people actually building these ambitious machines as well as the ambitious machines being built. But like I said before, it's really hard to get a whole bunch of people, not of the same organization and even of the same organization, to get on the same page. So if you're building the Millennium Falcon Lego set with your 5-year-old cousin and a few other nephews and nieces, and you actually want to coordinate them all to get on the same page, largely that can feel like, even in the most professional organization, herding cats. And so Integrate was built to solve that pain point and to help everybody get literally on the same page, and coordinated in a way that I've never seen offered before. We've tried to break just about every software out there to be able to do what Integrate does. And I think we have a very, very unique value proposition with the ability to share externally and internally.
All right, I think you've won the the description competition. That was pretty good. I like
Cool.
the Millennium Falcon Lego example there. Okay, so you have a very pretty extensive space resume, and I might even go farther and say new space resume. Right, you've spent time at Spire, Bryce Tech. I think you were sixth employee at Astranis.
Yes.
If I saw that correctly,
Six.
Spaceflight, ABL.
Yeah.
Sixth, seventh,
Yeah.
early.
Yeah.
The company doesn't have 6 or 7 people anymore. We know that. Spaceflight, ABL. Tell us a bit about the arc of your time in the new space industry. How has that shaped your desire and drive to build Integrate?
Yeah. I don't know if you've seen that graph of the various new space stakeholders or space stakeholders. That's like, I fought with your father in the CubeSat wars.
I have not seen that. No.
Yeah, okay. It's a good meme that I'll send you after this. But yeah, definitely feels like I've been around the block when it comes to new space. Originally got into space. I was not one of those 3-year-olds that looked up at the stars and was like, I want to be an astronaut by any means. Probably more in the mad scientist aspect of things, and screwing up, sticking a whole bunch of besties rockets to my back when I was 8, I think, and face planting straight in the dirt and that type of thing. So I always loved technology and the cool things you could do, but wasn't really a space person. Went into the Air Force and fell in love with these big, complex, crazy machines that we were using. I was working on AWACS. And I was up in Elmendorf, Alaska, probably why I love Pacific Northwest as much as I do. Went to school for economics and design and found an organization called Students for the Exploration and Development of Space. I think it was around 35 chapters at the time. I went to Arizona State University, which has quite a number of space programs, and heard this pitch from this dude, Ben Stinnett, for what Students for the Exploration and Development of Space was doing, and was just blown away. It was a 30-year-old organization at the time, 40-year-old now. Long story short, became treasurer, president, ran the national organization, or ran the national conference in 2013, and then went up to lead the national organization, which was consisting of all these chapters. It was rocky there, but had a blast because essentially just uprooted the entire organization with a few close friends, rebranded it, kind of brought it into the 2000s, and then grew it significantly. So that's how I got my foot in the door with the space industry. Still love Students for the Exploration and Development of Space, or SEDS USA, dearly, and am an advisor. But that's how I met the people that turned me on to Spire. I think we actually did a tour of Spire Global when there were 15, 20, 30, I don't know, people. Eventually ended up interning there and really saw the kind of the Wild West of hardware development of complex systems. I think they just sent up a few of their satellites, their first satellites. Was privy to a lot of what was going on. Went over to pick up what I now know is, I think it was an FPGA on one of the engineers' desks. They're like, put that down, those $40,000. It was just like, why is it just sitting here? But obviously they've gone on to do really, really spectacular things, and I learned a lot in that short internship. Ended up going to work for Bryce Space and Technology as NASA Office Chief Financial Officer contractor, doing analysis for how NASA affects the industry, commercial industry. And that was largely because Carissa Christensen spoke at Space Vision 2013, which was a conference that I led. And I was like, I want to work for her. And she gave this really, really, really great talk. So got a taste of it, wrote a paper about how small sats can be used to close the digital divide, which I was super, super passionate about, still am super passionate about. And that's why Gedmark and McClinko called me up from Astranis and said, hey, saw this paper, saw what you did with SEDS. Are you interested in interviewing? So flew out, I think, the next day to San Francisco to interview with them while they were still in the apartment on Stillman. Fell in love with what they were doing, geosatellites from... small geosatellites, employee number 6, 7, whatever it was at that point, and grew with them through about 150 people when we moved to 420 Bryant, and worked on supply chain procurement, pulling together. There's this really tragic or positive story of me getting confused on which specific bill of materials I was pulling together for this entire satellite at one point, but we got over the hump and figured it out. So I had a blast there. That's where really the kernel of Integrate started. My last of my many jobs there was to find launch providers for Astranis, and then went to Spaceflight, which is what moved me up to Seattle. Firsthand, felt the pain of coordinating a million different missions and a million different spacecraft on thousands of different missions. Not actually those numbers, about 2 order magnitudes off, but complex and difficult. That's where really started to feel the pain and the need for Integrate. And then went over to ABL to be head of business development there. They saw a lot of success. I think it was in the 60s for first employee, 50s or 60s for employee there. And then saw them through 450 and had an absolute blast. Incredible organization. And yeah, went to Dan and was just like, hey, I need to go fix this whole problem of coordinating all of these things between production, mission management, business development, our customers, external stakeholders, things. And I want to solve it for the industry. And he very, very wisely said, you should probably solve it for more than the industry. And that's what we're doing now. So very long-winded account.
No, I think no, great, and it's super helpful, and obviously kind of showcases the breadth of everything that you've done that allows you to kind of come up with Integrate, right? So I appreciate that. Now I do have actually something to say. There's an interesting common thread between all these companies, and I'm not going to imply. Maybe I will imply something, but let's actually go through all of them real quick. So Spire, now public, right? Public company. Bryce Tech. Pretty great research organization, obviously doing a lot of really good stuff. Astranis, $1 billion business, now backed by, Andreessen Horowitz amongst a lot of other great investors. Spaceflight acquired by Firefly, if I'm correct on that one. And then ABL, multi-billion dollar launch company. You've joined most of these organizations except maybe Bryce Tech pretty early on, it sounds like. So maybe it's the John Conafay effect. I'm not sure, but it's you've had a pretty good string of companies you worked for.
I think I'm just an incredibly, incredibly lucky person to be able to have worked for all the founders of these companies directly. So maybe I'm just a good picker, but I wish I could say more.
Well, maybe you'll have a future in investing sometime one day soon. So there you go.
Funny point about Bryce from the early stages. I actually joined them when they were a Torai Group, and then followed them when they became Bryce.
There you go.
So it was very, very early.
Yeah. So I want to spend some time just talking about the problem Integrate is solving. Since we're on the topic of being an investor and picking companies like this, right? Can you help me understand? And I'm pretty sure I know your answer to this question, but I want to hear it from you, right? Is the concept and idea and what you're building at Integrate, is that like a nice to have tool? Like, oh, this would be great if I had it. It makes me slightly more efficient. Like I can do all this stuff. It's all great. Or is there a critical solution, or is there a huge amount of inefficiency and things that aren't being done? Is this like a big problem that companies are truly facing that would significantly unlock value that they're not even seeing?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think you know where my answer is going to head, but for some people, it's not going to be a priority right now, outright. There's some big scaries about Integrate and this new way of collaborating with external and internal stakeholders. That there's a little bit of a hump, and we're just shy of a year and a half old. So anything new is going to be difficult, or can be seen as maybe not an absolute need to have. For the people that we are working with currently, it's becoming very, very quickly a need to have. 100%. And we aim to continue that level of value throughout the life of the company and just increase velocity on that value add period. We're not we're not out to play, so we're constantly figuring out the big bombastic things that we can do that will make this a need to have for every single one of our customers. We're constantly figuring out whether there are inorganic growth strategies that we can pursue and explore to figure out how we can deliver more value to our customers faster. And I know every single person says that in the world, in the world, but network is gigantic to me, and user experience is huge to us. We're largely design and experientially led. So speaking with our customers every single day, every single hour is a huge priority. So it will be a need to have. It will be synonymous with hardware development, in the coming years. And I don't know if that answers your question, but that's,
no, it does.
where we're headed. Yeah.
What's the core product offering today, right? If I'm a business, like what am I, and I sign up to work with you guys, what am I getting?
Yep. Getting the ability to identify specifications and requirements and attach schedule to those specifications and requirements. And then a very, very organic way of melding all of these pieces of hardware and schedule together to create a full program. A lot of people say, oh, you're building another project management. It's like, no, we want to encompass the full life cycle of a product, of a hardware build, and full supply chain of a hardware build. We want every company's vendors and customers in the application on board with them. And to be building these living, breathing programs, schedules with context. That's something that so many of these other software providers that are really kind of ubiquitous now lack, is the actual context of what's being built alongside these projects and programs that we offer. Above all else.
And what's like sort of the target initial customer base? Like at what point, like if I'm a startup listening to this right now, at what point should I, reach out to integrate for the service?
Yeah, so we want to serve everybody from the kid building a perpetual motion machine in their basement through to the 80,000 enterprise level company. Right now, I think where we best service is the small to medium businesses. So if you're 50 to 250, we found right around between 25 and 50 employees, where spreadsheets, Smartsheet, Jira start to break down, and the collaboration need is huge. So if you're starting to feel that pain of breaking down, wanting to break down the walls between your vendors, between your customers, between your teams, even internally, reach out for sure.
Got it. Okay. And then in terms of the business model itself, like how are you working with folks? Is it like a subscription-based model? How does, maybe talk about that for a second.
Are we supposed to be making money with this? Or, no,
I think.
No, we have a number of paying customers currently. So we're working with some enterprise licenses that are just they've reached a level of utility that it makes sense to pay a flat fee, so they don't have to worry about each individual. And in other cases, we're working on a per person per month basis. So subscription. We want to be as easy to access as just about any software you can imagine, if not much easier than every single software out there.
Right. How large is the team today?
About 10 people. It's about half engineering, and then we have two really, really spectacular, engineering team spectacular, but really amazing product designers and designers. One of the co-founders, Andrew Sloan, used to run Cosmos Schema and has done a lot of design across the space industry. And we wanted the application to be as welcoming and a lot different from everything else you see out there. So largely design led. And then just hired a head of business development. And we're hiring a few more engineers here soon, and should have some really, have some great hires. So we're excited about every single hire, but have some great hires to announce here soon as well.
So I will say one of the initial things I noticed about Integrate that I really, really liked, outside of the great events you guys throw at conferences, which we can talk about later, is the branding. You know, it felt like you spent quite a bit of time on branding from day one. Why was that important? I mean, it's just super interesting. Like, I don't know if you did that yourself, if you hired a design shop, but it was definitely something that stood out.
Yeah, so that was one of the reasons I approached Andrew from the beginning to be co-founder of Integrate. Was I've always been in love with his design, in love with his care for brand, and it's wildly important. Frankly, I'm bored shitless with a lot of the engineering tools and branding that exists out there, and it just gets boring to live in every single day. We want to build a product that is enticing, that excites people, that makes you feel like you're a part of a band or you're at a show that you need to be seen at. You know, we don't want it to be another tool that you're arduously updating, and every time you get into, you're like, why does this look like shit? Why does this feel like crap? You know? So that was really important from the get-go.
Yeah, you handed me. We were at Space Symposium, and we I think you may have just. I don't remember the timeline exactly, but you may have just left ABL, and we were chatting, and you handed me a purple business card. And you're like, oh yeah, I'm starting this company, and I was like, oh, this is neat. Anyway, so for the listeners listening, you guys can check out the website. It's integrate.co, right?
Yeah, it's
integrate.co.
Integrate.co. We have the website currently has been described as an 800-pound gorilla blockading any information about us, but we have a new marketing website coming out that's much more aligned with our personality as a company that I think people will be pretty excited about, and that's coming out pretty soon.
Got it. John, let's take a quick break just to hear from our sponsors. And when I get back there, I do want to talk about some recent commercial traction the company's had. So stay with us. Space is the new frontier for cybersecurity. To quote the commander of the U.S. Space Force's Operations Command, cyber threats are unfortunately the soft underbelly of our global space networks. SpiderOak, the leader in space cybersecurity software, is dedicated to providing space operators with the solutions they need to protect hybrid space systems. Their Orbit Secure software uses a unique combination of end-to-end zero-trust encryption and blockchain distributed ledger, allowing missions to orchestrate and secure Earth-to-orbit, orbit-to-Earth transmission, communication, and storage of sensitive data across even the most complex and unsecure LEO and hybrid space systems. To learn how Orbit Secure can bring zero-trust security and resiliency to your zero-gravity environments, check out SpiderOak at www.spideroak.com. All right, so John, I want to talk a little bit about your two recent business wins, which you announced publicly. So the first is a $1.25 million contract with the U.S. Space Force, and the second is a business agreement with Firefly. So tell us a little bit more about those.
Yeah, couldn't be thrilled more for both of them. Obviously, Firefly has seen incredible success over the past year, and more recently with their TAC-RS, Tactically Responsive Mission for the Space Force, Victus Nox. And so, they're delivering on a promise, and it's really, really great to have a bit of validation from them paying for and using our software, of course. And then I don't think a lot of people know this, but we are largely veteran-owned business. Myself being from the Air Force, working on AWACS up in Alaska, and then one of my co-founders, Paul Reisman, being a four-tour Army Spec Ops veteran. So being able to serve the U.S. government has been a theme throughout my space career, from Astranis through to ABL. Very, very excited and proud to be able to do that, and really excited for what it means for the potential for responsive launch. Really, I think Integrate has an incredible shot at being able to facilitate rapid and responsive launch, and we're going to pursue it very, very, very heavily. But yeah, direct phase 2 with the Space Force is going incredibly well. They seem excited. We're incredibly excited. The purpose for this one is to onboard to their systems and be able to actually get them using the software. So it's not, we're not developing some completely tertiary technology. This is for use of the application and to get new and novel technology into the Space Force. So it feels very effective and very excited for it. And hopefully we can just grow from there.
So the mission that you're referring to, obviously with Firefly, is their Victus Nox mission, which was their third flight last week. They made it to orbit, which is amazing, and successfully deployed the payload for the Space Force. Now, I don't know if you are aware of the sort of the Integrate platform's involvement in sort of that mission, and I'm not sure if you're aware of it or not. But if we were to just talk hypothetically, like, had they been using it, or if they were using it, talk to me about how that looks like, right? The life cycle of that specific launch and what they were working on, what they were doing, and all the different things and components involved.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely not going to speak to their use of the platform whatsoever, and don't want to misattribute or imply. But we're actively pursuing the opportunity to utilize Integrate for tactically responsive missions. It's the ability to disseminate information and tasking to multiple internal and external stakeholders in a matter of seconds, as opposed to weeks or months of planning. I think could be an absolute game changer, and is something we're pursuing. I'd love to be a part of the next one in any way we possibly can be.
I do have to understand a little bit about sort of the market sizing for a second, because like the commercial traction, commercial use case, commercial opportunity set for Integrate is pretty clear, right? I mean, this is a need in the market. People need, everyone's using outdated tools. Completely get it. But on the government side, that's one I'd say customer segment that I'm not very familiar with in terms of their use for a tool like Integrate. Maybe talk a little bit about that. What is that? How does that look like? Obviously, you want $1 million, $1.25 million contract with the U.S. Space Force. How much bigger can that get, and how many more of those can you get?
Yeah, absolutely. Something that is not well advertised, because it kind of muddies the message or muddles the message for Integrate, is that there is a large logistics component to the software. While it is for program management, that can be extended significantly to deployment management or deployment of complex systems. It doesn't just have to be hardware build. There are a million different processes that go into any complex deployment of hardware, which the military and Department of Defense is very familiar with and actively does in many different disparate parts of the world. And I think Integrate could be utilized for a lot of those logistics and rapid deployment needs, as well as coordination across multiple zones. So I think this is just the tip of the spear. Couldn't be more thrilled to be working with the team that we are on this contract currently. And I think they're being able to really, really ensure that they're happy with this implementation means that we can work with a number of other organizations to get Integrate in the hands of and some fundamental utility out of.
Right. Okay. Well, let's do a quick market map itself, right, of the landscape. So there's a lot of well, let me say this: we've had a number of mission management software, digital tools that we've had on the show before. I know there's a few else that are out there. How does kind of Integrate fit in with the landscape?
Yeah, absolutely. So I kind of bucket it into a few different categories. There's the low level, and I mean no insult by that. Technically, I think that's the correct terminology. Where you're very, very close to the hardware. It's how many foot-pounds of torque does this bolt need? What screw is going on to what build of a specific component. And so the MESs, the manufacturing execution systems, and the procedures applications of the world are absolutely necessary and not what we are delving into whatsoever. And then a little bit closer to the design side of the house, you have locking in designs with product lifecycle management and tools like this that integrate directly with CAD. And we sit in between and atop a lot of these tools to add a fundamentally temporal aspect to them. You don't have a lot of lead time tracking, you don't have takt time tracking and things like this that feed up to a project and then ultimately a program level. And that's where we sit largely in all of it. Much more macro than micro. If you want to see, what fleet of robots is going into testing, and then run your procedures with a different software, that's cool. But we don't really get down to the second by second, minute by minute. We're more of the day by day and up.
So the larger companies have internal builds, right, themselves. They can afford it. So a lot of them want to keep those in house. They want to keep a lot in house. Do you compete against those types of builds? Like, how do you think about do you want the larger kind of companies, to be using Integrate as well? Like, is that something that's on the target kind of customer roadmap?
Yeah, if with regard to market, if it's out there, we want it. just to be clear, we want to be synonymous with complex hardware, and to have every type from, like I said before, from the kid building a perpetual motion machine in his basement all the way through the 200,000 level corporations. Where we see fitting in right now is plugging into a lot of these internal systems, or one of the reasons we're going with a bit of a product-led growth model is to allow people to use the system within those systems, because usually you don't, it's not going to be a gigantic organization making the decision to use a platform such as Integrate. It's going to be 300 people within the organization individually using Integrate, and then realizing that others are using Integrate, and then lobbying for it to be the standard. So we see an opportunity there a lot more. That's the kind of a top down in through the middle and bottom up approach.
Do you think digital tools in general, especially these companies that operate within sort of different layers of the stack, over time and 3-5+ years start to look like each other as they scale?
Yeah, I was just speaking to somebody about this, and how the way to grab more of the market share is to solve more of your customers' problems. Period. That's why we are actively interested in inorganic growth opportunities to be able to grab bigger slices of the pie, for sure. And I think just naturally, all of these solutions want to be able to solve more and more of the problem themselves. I think on a long-term horizon, absolutely, they'll become directly competitive and look like each other. In the short term, I think it's largely comes down to market share and who serves their customers best, and we want to lead in that.
Right. All right. Well, let's talk about your recent round, because you just announced it last month. $3.4 million seed round. First of all, congratulations on that.
Thanks so much.
I know it's been an interesting fundraising market, to say the least. So tell us a bit about round construction and how that all came together.
Yeah. So it's interesting. Beginning half of the year is put it lightly, for sure. I wish I had the bravado to say that it was easy as pie, but I think the first quarter this year was down 80% from 2021 or 2022, which was already down 30% from 2021. Not surprisingly, and so going out and fundraising at that at that time was a hell of an adventure for sure.
Right.
Yeah, carried through through second quarter and found some really really spectacular investors. We yeah, I went up to Boston to speak to Hyperplane and left feeling like I'd made 5 lifelong friends. They just got it. They understood. No bullshit. Wanted to help. Wanted to dive into the problems that we're actually facing, and they still do that on a daily and weekly basis. And it's incredible. Also, very very much wanted uh, an investor like Hyperplane who has nothing to do with the space industry, very very heavily in robotics, and lives in Boston, so the hub of medical devices, robotics, and all of that, and they've been really helpful in getting us into other markets. And then Riot Ventures, who just fundamentally get what we're doing. You can look at their portfolio, Duro, Asimus, and others. Another really cool company, True Anomaly, but they're more on the hardware side, and they just understand the problem that these hardware companies are facing, and that there are software solutions, and truly believe that there are software solutions out there. So the conversation with them was spectacular from the get-go, and loved having them on board. Also have John Capmalupo, who was the co-founder and CTO of Whoop, which is one of the highest valued consumer electronics companies in the world, I believe, at some point. And he's president of a medical devices company, so he's really, really giving us some spectacular feedback, and he's excited about the product. And then the person that led our round at Village Global has since left to start his own fund called Ravelin Capital. And he was involved with the round as well. So it's great to have some, follow-on enthusiasm. And Lucas has just worked endlessly to help us in every way he can. So very, very excited for that.
Right. No, that's amazing. That's a great group of folks for sure. So I want to talk a little bit about what's maybe kind of growth areas for the business. What's next for the company? You mentioned earlier in the conversation, really at the beginning of the conversation, how Integrate really is not just for internal stakeholders, but for external stakeholders. Maybe talk a little bit about that, because obviously that's pretty interesting and not something that I've heard from some of the other tools. Maybe talk a little bit about that, and then we can talk a little bit about like what's next and what investors and industry folks should watch out for as they follow Integrate.
Yeah, absolutely. So just like any company or tool, it was born out of a lot of pain. And that pain was largely being able to coordinate with customers. So I've been in a lot of BD roles over the years, business development roles over the years, and the ability to coordinate our contracts with production, with mission management, with our supply chain, and all this. These all live in disparate systems or disparate environments within the same software. So from day one with Integrate, the decision was made that it's going to work much more like a social media platform, frankly. We toy with the idea of social supply chain internally, where you can live exactly where you need to live, see only what you need to see, and share explicitly only the small parts of your schedule or of your hardware build that you need to share with others externally. So you're exactly on the same page. Literally, you're looking at the same item. You're looking at the same schedule item. We have approval workflows that allow you to ask for permission to bump dates back from a completely separate company on just one date that is part of your schedule, and part of theirs, but you see two different schedules. If you think about it, it came from the pain of coordinating spacecraft that were in development with launch vehicles that were in development. Did a lot of in Spaceflight and some of it at ABL. And I like to say, if building a complex system is like barreling down the highway while putting the wheels on the car, trying to coordinate a spacecraft and a launch vehicle that are both in design is like a quarter-mile drag race with both teams working on the cars while they're racing. So coordination has to be very, very, very precise, and that's what we're solving with it, right?
And then, so you mentioned Hyperplane as an investor, but you also mentioned industries outside of space. right? So it sounds like Integrate's not just focused on the space industry.
Yeah. Love the space industry. It's a huge part of my heart and always will be. But also had some good friends beat us over the head once they saw what we were building over beers in LA, I think. There were technical program managers of Apple and Google and other complex hardware organizations, and say, why the hell are you just building this for the space industry? We've needed this our entire careers. So yeah, that was the impetus it was a very wonderfully timely impetus and conversation, but it was impetus to get outside of the space industry and make this solution available to people in robotics, medical devices, drones, submarines. We have a few large robotics corporations and a few others, other non-space organizations that we're working with, and hopefully we'll be able to give some good news about soon.
John, just to switch gears now for a second, away from Integrate. So we talked a little bit about fundraising earlier. It's been a difficult market. Based on the conversations you've had going through the process, what advice do you have for founders who might be listening to this and thinking about raising around maybe at pre-seed, seed in this market?
Keep going. It's I think the numbers say that the largest attrition comes from those who quit, not those who fail. And it gets hard. It gets very, very hard. You put so much of your soul and singular being and experience and reputation on the line. It gets really hard. Read books about founders that have gone out and done really hard shit. That's what got me through a lot of it. Have a support network. Have an incredible partner. Spectacular dog. That's probably number one. Also, is get a dog. They help immensely when you're having a rough day. This guy's just over here chilling. Get a dog, but also read stories about other founders who did really hard things and went through stuff. Also, it's going to feel like you don't have the opportunity to pick, but as long as you keep going, you will. And it's okay, even as painful as it might be in the moment, to say no to people that set off red flags for you or that you don't enjoy being around or speaking to. I feel exceptionally lucky that I deeply trust and care about the people that have invested in our company. But there were definitely a few that I spoke to that set off such severe red flags that I decided I would not take money from them, no matter whether it meant the death of the company or not.
What is your what's your favorite tech in the industry right now that you're a big fan of? You've worked with a lot of you've worked at a number of different companies that do a lot of different things. So I'm very curious to hear your answer on this. And then what are you most looking forward to seeing develop that doesn't exist yet today?
Yeah, it's so hard to answer this question because I have so much love for all the organizations that I've worked for before. ABL's continuing to and will kill it. Astranis put up their first satellite in record time, and a little bit of a hiccup, but that's space. And we had two other mega geo satellites have trouble at the same time. Really, really audacious and spectacular. And then Spire has hundreds of satellites around the Earth. So it's really, really hard to say not one of those. Stokes Hop was pretty cool, man. It happened, over the weekend. It's cool to see such an advanced, crazy engine actually work and do what it's supposed to do again in record time. I love the Star Wars going on right now, just from X and LinkedIn, watching everybody, go back and forth. There's some big personalities, and it's just really fun to watch. So I really love that stuff. And then what's out there that doesn't exist yet? I'm excited for launch competition to be back. SpaceX has done absolutely unbelievable things for the entire industry, but one company can't be the end all be all for the entire industry. Yeah,
definitely. And hey, look, it's looking like we might have a little bit of competition at the very least.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, and not to diminish Rocket Lab's incredible work, and obviously Firefly's coming on. We're seeing it, and it's starting to take off. It's pretty exciting.
No, look, I've spent a great deal of time on this. All credit to Rocket Lab; they've done great work. But they still have a launch vehicle that doesn't generate real gross margins. And that's not a Rocket Lab problem. That's a across the industry problem, and everyone needs to go bigger and reusable and all that stuff. So I think you can point to every company. Rocket Lab's done an amazing job with execution, and clearly they're very, very capable. ABL, Stoke, Firefly, Relativity, all those companies, they're doing some really cool stuff. So I suspect those launch you're going to see a lot of things start to heat up, which that's definitely the case right now. So
absolutely. One thing I do have to say, Starfish's recovery of that satellite.
Oh, Otterpup
was mind blowing. Like, I know I'm giving a lot of shout outs to Seattle companies because I love it up here, I love these companies, but that was a hell of a feat.
So for those who don't know, give us the quick 30 seconds of what happened.
The Otterpup got deployed, attached to an OTV. The OTV was orbital transfer vehicle was spinning, so made an emergency deployment of Otterpup. So Otterpup was spinning at 300 cycles a second or something like this, rotations a second, something insane, which is way out of the tolerance for a lot of systems on spacecraft, because why would a spacecraft be doing that? And it took them a little bit, but they were able to detumble it, which I'm not aware of another spacecraft that's gone through that and has done that. But the math and engineering and everything that went into that had to be spectacular. I was lucky to hear a bit about the journey, and I just think it's one of the coolest things that's happened this year by far. Yeah. Got it.
Yeah. No, that was definitely that's I think their aptly named Otterpup definitely led to a lot of new fans.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
What? All right. Well, last question of the day. What is your? Give me your favorite book or movie, sci-fi or space related.
Oh man.
You get to choose one, and you never get to see anything else.
Oh God, that's okay. So, all love to Neil Stephenson. 70s came to mind first and foremost, but there is this incredibly dark, incredible trilogy called the Broken Earth series from, I believe it's M.K. Jemisin. I hope I'm getting that right. Yep. That is like deeply emotional. I don't want to say anything about it because it'll give away too much, but the thing that blew my mind was it actually came out of a NASA novelist accelerator, where NASA invited a bunch of novelists to get together and come up with ideas for novels. And I think it won the Hugo Award 3 times for each iteration, which is unheard of, or each part of the trilogy, which is unheard of. It's dark, it's intense, but absolutely incredible.
So I'll give you a shout out on one last thing, and hopefully you're not mad at me for giving you the shout out. Uh-oh. But at a lot of these space conferences, there's tons of parties. Big, SpaceX and Northrop and all these big, very well-funded companies. But I constantly hear, hey, what was the best party of this XYZ conference? Oh, the Integrate's party. So Integrate keeps coming up. How does one get an invite?
How does one become a customer? No, of course.
There you go. And if someone did want to be a customer, how do they reach out to you?
We have hello@integrate.co. Hit us up on our website. There's a lead gen form that'll kick us your information, and integrate.co, and we'll get back to you within 24 hours, period.
Amazing. John, thanks so much for being on the show. It's a pleasure having you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. Cheers.
Okay.